The soft humming of medical equipment filled the pristine examination room as Dr. Lam Than Vai adjusted the settings on her nanomicroscope. Outside the reinforced panoramic windows of Intergalactic Cooperation Hospital, the three moons of Hevra III cast an ethereal glow across the planet's azure landscape. It was late in the evening cycle of 2375, and most of the medical staff had already retired to their quarters. Than Vai brushed a strand of her sleek black hair away from her face, dark eyes narrowing in concentration. At 32, she was one of the youngest human immunologists to be granted a position at this prestigious interplanetary medical facility. After 5 years on Hevra III, she had grown accustomed to the slightly lower gravity and the peculiar metallic scent that permeated the air recycling systems. Just a small fever, Dr. Lam, came the melodic, slightly modulated voice from the examination table. I didn't mean to trouble you so late in the cycle. Than Vai glanced up at her patient, Zentra, a Krithian nurse who had been working alongside her for the past 3 standard months. Like all Krithians, Zentra possessed an elegant, willowy frame that stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin had a faint lavender hue that complemented the iridescent scales scattered across her shoulders and forearms. The most striking feature, however, was her eyes, large, almond-shaped orbs with vertical pupils that shifted between amber and emerald depending on the lighting. It's no trouble at all, Than Vai replied, her Vietnamese accent still detectable despite years of using the universal translator. Besides, you've been running this fever for 3 cycles now. That's unusual for Krithian physiology. Zentra's graceful fingers fidgeted with the edge of her medical gown. I'm sure it's nothing. Perhaps just an adaptation to the hospital's environment. Than Vai shook her head firmly. Let me be the judge of that. Your core temperature is 2 degrees above Krithian normal, and your lymphatic system shows signs of hyperactivity. She turned back to the blood sample she'd been examining, making a small adjustment to the microscope's magnification. There's something unusual about your cellular activity as well. The room fell silent as Than Vai focused on the holographic projection emanating from the microscope. Krithian blood cells typically appeared as hexagonal structures with a central nucleus, different from human blood, but well documented in the galactic medical databases. What she was seeing now, however, defied standard classification. That's strange, she murmured, more to herself than to her patient. What is it? Zentra asked, a note of concern entering her voice. Than Vai hesitated. Your DNA is... I'm not sure how to describe it. She magnified the image further, focusing on a particular strand of genetic material. There's a faint purple luminescence along this section. I've never seen anything like it in Krithian genetics before. Zentra sat up abruptly, her normally composed demeanor suddenly agitated. That's impossible. Our DNA doesn't... She stopped herself mid-sentence, scales along her forearms rippling in what Than Vai had come to recognize as a sign of distress. Doesn't what? Than Vai pressed. Her scientific curiosity piqued. It's nothing, Zentra said, her voice now carefully controlled. Perhaps your equipment needs recalibration. The quantum fluctuations from the hospital's energy core sometimes interfere with the more sensitive instruments. Than Vai frowned. The explanation was plausible. The hospital's experimental quantum core did occasionally cause minor disturbances in the more delicate medical equipment. But the earnestness with which Zentra had offered the explanation seemed forced. Perhaps, Than Vai conceded, though her tone made it clear she wasn't convinced. I'll prescribe you a standard immune booster, but I'd like you to come back tomorrow for additional tests, just to be safe. The Krithian nurse nodded, perhaps a bit too eagerly. Of course, Dr. Lam, whatever you think is best. After Zentra had departed, Than Vai remained in the examination room, staring at the recorded image of the unusual DNA strand. The purple glow was subtle but unmistakable. She checked and rechecked the equipment, ran diagnostics on the imaging system, and even took a sample of her own blood to ensure the microscope wasn't malfunctioning. Everything appeared to be working perfectly, which meant that what she was seeing was real and potentially groundbreaking. She tapped a sequence on her wrist communicator. "Dr. Hui Fong, are you still in the research wing?" A moment passed before a deep male voice responded. "Yes, just finishing up some paperwork. What do you need, Than Vai?" "I need your eyes on something. Immediately." Examination room 7. 15 minutes later. Dr. Hui Fong stood beside Than Vai, his broad shoulders hunched as he peered into the microscope. At 45, Fong was one of the senior physicians at the hospital, a respected geneticist with decades of experience in cross-species medicine. "This is from your Crithian nurse?" he asked, his voice hushed with professional caution. Than Vai nodded. "Zentra. She came in complaining of a fever, but tried to downplay it. When I examined her blood..." She gestured toward the holographic display. Fong straightened, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "I've treated hundreds of Crithians during my career. Never seen anything like this. The luminescence is almost like..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Like what?" "Like some of the ancient genetic markers we've found in archaeological samples. From extinct species." Fong turned to face her fully. "Have you run a comparison against the genetic database?" "Not yet. I wanted a second opinion before proceeding." Fong nodded approvingly. "Smart. This could be sensitive. Let's run a full spectrum analysis, but keep it between us for now. No need to alarm anyone until we know exactly what we're dealing with." For the next few hours, Than Vai and Fong worked methodically, comparing Zentra's DNA against every known species in the hospital's vast database. The results were baffling. While 95% of the genetic structure matched standard Crithian patterns, the remaining 5%, the section emitting the purple glow, matched nothing in their records. "Could it be a mutation?" Than Vai suggested, stifling a yawn as the hospital's night cycle deepened. Fong shook his head. "Mutations don't present like this. This is..." He frowned, studying the three-dimensional model they'd constructed. "This looks deliberate, engineered, even..." The implication hung heavy in the air between them. Genetic engineering of sentient beings was strictly regulated throughout the Intergalactic Alliance, with good reason. The memory wars 2 centuries earlier had been triggered by a faction of genetically enhanced humans who had attempted to establish dominance over natural populations. "We need to expand our search," Than Vai decided, "beyond the medical database." Fong's eyes widened. "You're talking about accessing the restricted archives? That would require authorization from the hospital board." "Not necessarily." Than Vai's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "I have limited research access through my immunology credentials. We can start there." "Than Vai." Fong's voice carried a note of warning. "This is dangerous territory. If Zentra's DNA contains what I think it might, there could be serious diplomatic implications." She paused, meeting his concerned gaze. "I know. But what if she's sick? What if this is some kind of new pathogen that affects Crithian DNA? We have a duty to investigate." After a moment of tense silence, Fong nodded reluctantly. "All right, but we proceed carefully. Document everything meticulously." As dawn broke over Hevra III's horizon, bathing the hospital's crystal spires in golden light, Than Vai and Fong stared at their findings in disbelief. "This can't be right," Fong muttered, running the analysis for the 3rd time. The results remained unchanged. The mysterious section of Zentra's DNA contained genetic markers that predated known galactic civilization. The closest match was to fragmentary samples recovered from the ruins of Hevra II, Hevra III's sister planet that had been destroyed in a cataclysmic event over 50,000 years ago. "The Anhao," Than Vai whispered, referencing the ancient civilization believed to have once dominated this sector of the galaxy. But that's impossible. They've been extinct for millennia. Fong's expression was grim. Apparently not entirely. At least, not their genetic legacy. The implications were staggering. The Anhao were revered and feared in equal measure, a species said to have mastered genetic manipulation to such a degree that they could reshape life itself. The limited artifacts recovered from their ruins had revolutionized medical science, but much of their knowledge remained lost to time. We need to speak with Zentra, Thanvai decided. She must know something about this. Not yet, Fong countered. We need to report this to the hospital board first. This goes beyond medical curiosity. Thanvai, if Krithians have been experimenting with Anhao genetics— We don't know that's what happened, she interrupted. We're jumping to conclusions based on incomplete data. Their debate was cut short by an urgent alert from Thanvai's communicator. Emergency in Ward 12. Patient, Zentra. Condition, critical. Both doctors rushed to the emergency ward, arriving to find a scene of controlled chaos. Medical drones hovered around Zentra's unconscious form, monitoring her vitals and administering emergency treatments. Her lavender skin had taken on an unsettling ashen tone, except for faint lines that traced across her body, like a network of glowing purple veins. What happened? Thanvai demanded, pushing past a junior physician to reach her patient's side. She collapsed during morning rounds, the physician explained. Her body temperature spiked to critical levels, and she began experiencing seizure-like symptoms. We've stabilized her for now, but she's not responding to standard treatments. Thanvai exchanged a meaningful glance with Fong. I need this ward cleared, she announced. Dr. Fong and I will take over this case. But protocol requires— I'm invoking Medical Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha, Fong interjected, his authoritative tone brooking no argument. Potential unknown pathogen. We need isolation and specialized equipment. The junior staff withdrew reluctantly, sealing the ward behind them. Once alone with their patient, Thanvai and Fong worked quickly to establish a secure diagnostic environment. The luminescence has spread throughout her vascular system, Thanvai observed, scanning Zentra's still form. It's following the pattern of her circulatory network. Fong nodded grimly. The question is this a disease, or is it something else entirely? Before Thanvai could respond, the ward's communication system chimed with an incoming call. The stern face of Director Opal, the hospital's administrative head, appeared on the main screen. Dr. Lam, Dr. Fong, she greeted them, her tone crisp. I've been informed of your emergency protocols. Would you care to explain why you've isolated a staff member without notifying the board? Thanvai straightened, meeting the director's gaze directly. We're dealing with an unusual medical situation that requires careful handling. Nurse Zentra is presenting with symptoms that may indicate a novel genetic condition. Director Opal's eyes narrowed. And the reports I'm receiving about unauthorized access to the restricted archives? Was that also part of your careful handling? Fong stepped forward. Director, we discovered anomalies in Nurse Zentra's DNA that required further investigation. The situation is evolving rapidly, and we— Stop, Opal cut him off. Whatever you've discovered remains confidential. I'm sending a security team to secure your research and transfer the patient to the quarantine wing. With all due respect, Director, Thanvai protested, we're in the middle of critical treatment. Moving her now could— This is not a request. Dr. Lam, this is a direct order. Opal's expression hardened. The Krithian ambassador has already been notified of a potential medical incident involving one of their citizens. This is now a diplomatic matter, as well as a medical one. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Thanvai and Fong in stunned silence. They notified the Krithian government, Thanvai whispered, aghast. Before we even understand what we're dealing with? Fong's expression darkened. Politics. always interfering with medicine. He moved to Zentra's side, checking her vitals. We have perhaps 20 minutes before security arrives. What do you want to do? Thanvai hesitated only briefly. We continue our work. If this is what I think it is. The implications go beyond hospital politics or even diplomatic relations. They worked frantically, gathering as much data as possible, while simultaneously trying to stabilize Zentra's deteriorating condition. The purple luminescence continued to spread, now visible through her skin, even without specialized equipment. Her cellular structure is changing, Fong reported, eyes fixed on the real-time genetic scanner. The Anhao DNA segments are replicating, integrating with her existing genetic structure. Thanvai made a decision. We need to try to slow the process. Give me a targeted immunosuppressant. That could kill her if this is some kind of infection. It's not an infection, Thanvai insisted. Look at the pattern. This is controlled genetic expression. Something activated the dormant DNA, and now it's awakening. Fong hesitated, then prepared the injection. I hope you know what you're doing. The moment the immunosuppressant entered Zentra's system, her body reacted violently. The purple glow intensified, coalescing into a pulsating aura that surrounded her entire form. Medical alarms blared as her vital signs fluctuated wildly. What's happening? Fong demanded, frantically adjusting the life support systems. Thanvai stared in fascination and horror as the light began to form patterns in the air above Zentra's body. Complex, mathematical sequences that shifted and evolved before their eyes. It's communicating, she whispered, stepping closer despite Fong's warning hand on her arm. Or trying to. The patterns swirled faster, then suddenly projected outward, enveloping both doctors in a dome of purple light. Inside this ethereal bubble, time seemed to slow. Thanvai felt a strange pressure in her mind, as if something, or someone, was attempting to make contact. Then, Zentra's eyes snapped open, but they were no longer the amber-emerald blend of a Crithian. Instead, they shone with the same purple luminescence that emanated from her body. You've awakened it, she said, her voice overlaid with harmonic tones that seemed to resonate within Thanvai's very bones. After all these millennia, the legacy returns. Zentra? Thanvai moved closer, medical scanner still in hand. Can you understand me? The Crithian nurse tilted her head, studying Thanvai with those uncanny glowing eyes. I am Zentra, and I am more. The memories are returning now, flooding back through the genetic pathway you've opened. What memories? What's happening to you? Fong demanded, maintaining a cautious distance. A smile spread across Zentra's face, serene, yet somehow ancient. I am the culmination of a project begun 50,000 years ago, a preservation initiative by the last of the Anhao, as their civilization faced extinction. She raised a hand, watching as the purple light danced between her fingers. They knew they couldn't survive the coming cataclysm, so they seeded their genetic legacy into compatible species throughout the galaxy. Thanvai's scientific mind raced to process the implications. You're saying the Anhao deliberately integrated segments of their DNA into other species, including Crithians? Not just Crithians, Zentra replied, her gaze shifting to meet Thanvai's. Humans as well, and dozens of other species with compatible genetic structures. The revelation hit Thanvai like a physical blow. That's impossible. Human DNA has been fully mapped for centuries. We would have noticed alien genetic material. Would you? Zentra challenged gently. The Anhao were masters of genetic engineering. They designed these sequences to remain dormant, invisible, until specific conditions were met. She gestured to the medical equipment surrounding them. Conditions like exposure to certain frequencies of quantum energy, the kind generated by this hospital's experimental core. Fong had gone pale. If what you're saying is true, It would rewrite our understanding of galactic evolution. It would mean that many of the galaxy's sentient species share a common ancestor. Zentra finished for him. Yes, that is precisely what it means. The implications were staggering. Throughout the centuries of interspecies contact, one of the enduring mysteries had been the compatible biochemistry of many sentient races, despite their diverse evolutionary paths. Scientists had attributed it to convergent evolution or similar planetary conditions. But this suggested deliberate design. Why? Thanvai asked, finding her voice at last. Why would they do this? Zentra's expression softened. Preservation, continuation, and perhaps redemption. She closed her eyes briefly, as if listening to distant voices. The memories are fragmented, but I sense great regret. The Anhao had reached a technological pinnacle, but their ambition led to catastrophe. Before the end, they sought to preserve not just their genetic legacy, but their knowledge, encoded within the DNA itself. As she spoke, the purple dome around them pulsed, projecting intricate symbols and equations onto the air. Thanvai recognized elements of advanced biochemistry and quantum physics, but much of it was beyond even her educated understanding. This knowledge, it could revolutionize medicine, she breathed, reaching out as if to touch the floating equations. The potential applications for healing, for curing diseases thought incurable, or for creating weapons of unimaginable power, Fong interjected gravely. There's a reason the Anhao civilization collapsed. Thanvai. Power like this comes with tremendous responsibility. Before the conversation could continue, the ward's doors slid open. A security team entered, accompanied by Director Opal and a tall, imposing Krithian in formal diplomatic attire. The moment they crossed the threshold, the purple dome vanished, and Zentra fell back onto the bed, seemingly unconscious once more. The glowing patterns faded from her skin, though a faint luminescence remained visible around her eyes. "What in the name of the Alliance is going on here?" Director Opal demanded, taking in the scene with visible alarm. The Krithian diplomat stepped forward, his attention fixed on Zentra. Ambassador Krelvor. He introduced himself with cold formality. I understand one of our citizens is experiencing a medical emergency. I'm here to ensure her rights and dignity are being respected. Thanvai exchanged a quick glance with Fong, a silent agreement passing between them. Whatever they had just witnessed, whatever Zentra had revealed, they needed time to process it before sharing with authorities who might not have the patient's best interests at heart. Ambassador, Director, Fong began, assuming his most professional demeanor. We've been treating Nurse Zentra for an unusual immune response. We believe she's been exposed to a rare quantum-sensitive compound, possibly from the hospital's energy core. We've managed to stabilize her condition, but she'll need continued observation. The ambassador's vertical pupils contracted slightly, a sign of suspicion in Krithian body language. And the unauthorized research you conducted? The access to restricted genetic archives? Thanvai stepped forward. Standard protocol when dealing with unknown pathologies. Ambassador, we needed to rule out known genetic conditions before proceeding with treatment. Director Opal's expression made it clear she wasn't convinced. Both of you are temporarily relieved of your duties pending a full investigation. The patient will be transferred to the diplomatic medical wing under Krithian supervision. That would be a mistake, Thanvai said firmly. Zentra's condition is still unstable. Moving her could trigger a relapse. I concur, came a weak voice from the bed. Zentra had opened her eyes, now returned to their normal coloration, and was struggling to sit up. Please, Ambassador Krelvor, I wish to remain under Dr. Lamb's care. The ambassador moved to Zentra's side, bending to whisper something in their shared native language. Zentra responded with firm, quiet words that caused the ambassador to straighten abruptly. his scales rippling with what appeared to be shock. "Very well," he announced after a moment of tense silence. "Nurse Zentra will remain here for continued treatment. However, I will be stationing Krithian medical observers to monitor her progress." Director Opal began to protest, but the ambassador silenced her with a raised hand. "This is now a matter of Krithian sovereign interest. Director, I suggest you accommodate our requests if you wish to avoid a diplomatic incident." After the director and ambassador had departed, leaving 2 Krithian observers stationed outside the ward, Thanvai approached Zentra's bedside. "What did you say to him?" she asked quietly. A faint smile played across Zentra's lips. "I informed him that I carry the genetic legacy of the Anhao, and that any attempt to interfere with my treatment would result in the loss of potentially invaluable knowledge." She reached out to grasp Thanvai's hand. "I also told him that I trust you, Dr. Lam, that you have the wisdom to handle this discovery responsibly." Thanvai felt the weight of that trust settle upon her shoulders. "I don't know if I deserve that confidence." "You do," Zentra assured her. "The Anhao memories within me, they recognize something in you. A kindred spirit, perhaps." Her expression grew serious. "But we must move carefully now. There are those who would use this knowledge for power rather than healing." "The hospital board has suspended us," Fong pointed out, joining them. "Our access to the research facilities has been revoked." Zentra's eyes glimmered with a momentary flash of purple. "Then we must find allies, others who understand the importance of what we've discovered." She turned to Thanvai. "And we must prepare for the changes to come. My transformation is not complete. It's only beginning." Over the next several days, a tense standoff developed within the hospital. Officially, Thanvai and Fong were under investigation for protocol violations, but the Krithian ambassador's intervention had prevented their outright dismissal. Zentra remained under observation in a private ward, with both hospital security and Krithian diplomatic guards maintaining a constant presence. Despite the restrictions, Thanvai managed to continue her research through a network of sympathetic colleagues. Dr. Zara, a Diluvian xenogeneticist with whom she had collaborated in the past, proved particularly helpful, providing access to her private laboratory during off hours. "These genetic sequences are unlike anything I've ever seen," Zara marveled, her translucent blue fingers manipulating the holographic model of Zentra's DNA. Diluvians, with their liquid crystal physiology, excelled at genetic research due to their natural ability to perceive molecular structures. The complexity, the elegant redundancies. Whoever engineered this was operating at a level of genetic science we can barely comprehend. Thanvai nodded, watching as Zara highlighted various sections of the DNA strand. "The question is, what is it designed to do?" Zentra mentioned preservation of knowledge. But how exactly does that work? How does genetic material store complex information beyond basic biological instructions? Zara's fluid features rippled in what Thanvai recognized as her species equivalent of a thoughtful frown. "Perhaps it doesn't, at least not directly. Consider quantum entanglement theory. What if these genetic sequences are quantum linked to information stored elsewhere? Like a key to a lock," Thanvai mused, "or an access code to a database?" "Precisely." Zara manipulated the model further, zooming in on a particularly complex section. "And given what we know about quantum principles, such links could theoretically persist across vast distances, even across time itself." The implications sent a shiver down Thanvai's spine. "You're suggesting that Zentra's activated DNA might be connecting to Anhao knowledge repositories that still exist somewhere?" "It's a hypothesis," Zara admitted. "But it would explain the visual phenomena you witnessed, the projections of mathematical formulas, the sense of memories returning." Their theoretical discussion was interrupted by an urgent message from Fong. "Zentra's condition has changed. Come immediately." Thon Vai rushed back to the hospital, using service corridors to avoid security checkpoints. When she arrived at Zentra's ward, she found Fong engaged in a heated argument with two Krithian medical observers. "What's happening?" she demanded, pushing past them to reach Zentra's bedside. The sight that greeted her was both beautiful and alarming. Zentra lay conscious but serene, her entire body now suffused with a gentle purple glow. The luminescence had organized itself into intricate patterns that flowed across her skin like living calligraphy. "It began 2 hours ago," Fong explained, keeping his voice low. "The Krithian observers wanted to sedate her and transport her to their embassy. I refused." Thon Vai turned to the Krithian physicians. "This is a crucial stage in her transformation. Interference could be dangerous, possibly fatal. Our instructions come directly from the High Council." One of them responded stiffly. "The potential knowledge she carries is considered vital to Krithian national security." "I am not a database to be downloaded," Zentra interjected, her voice surprisingly strong, despite her altered state. "Nor am I a weapon to be deployed. What awakens within me belongs to all sentient species, not to any single government or faction." The senior Krithian observer's scales flattened against his skin, a sign of aggression. "You are a citizen of the Krithian hegemony. Your primary loyalty is to life itself," Zentra finished firmly. "As is the oath of every medical professional, regardless of species." She turned her luminous gaze to Thon Vai. "The transformation is accelerating. Soon, I will understand the full extent of what the Anhao encoded within me, but I need your protection until then." Before Thon Vai could respond, alarms blared throughout the hospital. The emergency communication system activated, Director Opal's voice echoing through the ward. "Attention all personnel. A Level 1 quarantine is now in effect. An unknown biological agent has been detected in the Central Medical Wing. All patients and staff are to remain in place until further notice." Fong's expression darkened. "They're using quarantine protocols to lock down the hospital. This isn't about containment. It's about control." The Krithian observers exchanged glances, then moved toward the door. "We must report to the ambassador," one announced. "Maintain her stability until we return." Once they had departed, Thon Vai turned to Fong. "We need to move her. They'll be back with reinforcements." "The hospital is locked down," he pointed out. "Where could we possibly go?" "The archaeological wing," Zentra suggested, struggling to sit up. "There's an Anhao artifact on display there. A ceremonial healing chamber recovered from the ruins on Hevra 2. I believe it was designed for this purpose." Thon Vai helped her to her feet, noting with concern how the patterns of light seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. "For what purpose exactly?" Zentra's glowing eyes met hers. "Completion. Activation of the final sequence." She swayed slightly, leaning against Thon Vai for support. "I can feel the knowledge expanding within me. Dr. Lam, it's overwhelming, beautiful and terrible at once." With Fong securing their path, using his administrative access codes, they made their way through the hospital's emergency stairwells, avoiding the main corridors where security would be heaviest. Zentra grew stronger as they progressed, as if drawing energy from some unseen source. The archaeological wing was deserted due to the quarantine, its dramatic lighting dimmed to emergency levels. At its center stood a circular chamber of unknown metallic composition, covered in the same intricate patterns that now adorned Zentra's skin. "The restoration vessel," Zentra whispered, approaching it with reverent steps. "For 50,000 years, it has waited." "Waited for what?" Thon Vai asked, helping her toward the artifact. "For one who carries the legacy to return." Zentra placed her glowing hand against the surface of the chamber. Immediately, the patterns on both her skin and the artifact illuminated in perfect synchronization, casting the entire wing in ethereal purple light. The chamber, previously thought to be solid, reconfigured itself before their eyes, opening like the petals of a flower to reveal an interior space just large enough to accommodate a humanoid form. "I must enter," Zentra stated, her voice now overlaid with harmonic tones that seemed to resonate with the chamber itself. "What begins must be completed." Thunvai hesitated, her scientific caution warring with the unprecedented nature of what they were witnessing. "We don't know what it will do to you." "I do," Zentra replied with calm certainty. "It will fulfill the purpose for which I was designed, to bridge past and future, to carry forward what would otherwise be lost." She gripped Thunvai's hand tightly. "Trust me, as I have trusted you." After a moment, Thunvai nodded. "We'll monitor you as best we can." Zentra stepped into the chamber, which immediately began to close around her. Before it sealed completely, she fixed Thunvai with a gaze of surprising clarity. "Protect the knowledge, Dr. Lamb. Share it wisely." The chamber sealed with a soft hum, the patterns across its surface intensifying until they were almost too bright to look at directly. Fong pulled Thunvai back several steps as the artifact began to levitate slightly above its display pedestal, rotating slowly in midair. "What's happening?" he demanded. Medical scanner aimed futilely at the impenetrable surface. "I don't know," Thunvai admitted, "but I think—" Her words were cut short as the chamber suddenly emitted a pulse of energy that expanded outward in a perfect sphere, passing harmlessly through them and the surrounding structure. As it did, Thunvai experienced a momentary sensation of connection, as if her consciousness had briefly touched something vast and ancient. Images flooded her mind. A civilization of unimaginable advancement. Cities that merged seamlessly with natural landscapes. Technologies that operated at the quantum level. Healing methods that could cure any disease or injury. And beneath it all, a profound respect for the interconnectedness of all life. Then came darker visions. Ambition, overreaching wisdom. Power misused. A civilization tearing itself apart from within, even as external threats loomed. Finally, a desperate plan to preserve what mattered most. Not empire or technology, but knowledge and understanding. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Thunvai gasping beside her. Fong wore an expression of wonder and disbelief, suggesting he had experienced something similar. "Did you see?" he began. "Yes," she confirmed. "They weren't just an advanced civilization. They were trying to—" The chamber interrupted them by gently descending back to its pedestal and unsealing itself. Within lay Zentra, her body no longer glowing but marked with permanent, subtle patterns that resembled intricate tattoos across her lavender skin. Her eyes, when they opened, had returned to their natural state, but held a depth and wisdom that hadn't been there before. "Zentra?" Thunvai approached cautiously. "Are you yourself?" A smile spread across the Crithian's face as she sat up. "I am myself, and I am more. The integration is complete." She extended a hand, which Thunvai took to help her from the chamber. "The knowledge of the Anhao is now part of me, accessible, understood, but not overwhelming." "What exactly does that mean?" Fong asked, medical scanner already evaluating her vital signs. "It means I carry within me the accumulated wisdom of a civilization that reached its zenith 50,000 years ago." Zentra explained. "Medical knowledge, scientific understanding, philosophical insights, preserved not as information to be memorized, but as intuitive understanding." She turned to Thunvai. "And I am not alone. There are others like me throughout the galaxy, carriers of different aspects of Anhao knowledge, waiting to be awakened." "Including humans?" Thunvai asked, remembering their earlier conversation. Zentra nodded. "Yes. The Anhao distributed their legacy widely, ensuring no single species would hold all the keys. She looked around at the archaeological displays surrounding them. What you see here, the artifacts, the ruins, these are mere shadows of their true legacy. The real preservation was biological, encoded in the very fabric of life itself. Their discussion was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Director Opal appeared at the entrance to the wing, accompanied by Ambassador Krelvor and a contingent of security personnel. "So this is where you've hidden yourselves," Opal observed coldly. "Tampering with archaeological artifacts during a quarantine lockdown. I could have you imprisoned for this alone." Ambassador Krelvor stepped forward, his attention fixed on Zentra. "The transformation is complete," he stated. "Not a question, but a recognition. You have accessed the Anhao knowledge." "I have," Zentra confirmed, standing tall and unintimidated, despite being confronted by authorities from two worlds. "Then you will return with me to Krithia immediately," the ambassador declared. "Our scientists have questions that require answers." Zentra shook her head. "I will not be sequestered by any government, Ambassador. The knowledge I carry was meant for all sentient beings, not as a tool for political advantage." The ambassador's scales flattened in anger. "You have a duty to your people." "I have a duty to all people," Zentra corrected him gently, as did the Anhao, in their final wisdom. Director Opal stepped forward. "Whatever knowledge you've acquired, Nurse Zentra, it was done using hospital resources and in violation of numerous protocols. It legally belongs to the Intergalactic Cooperation Hospital and its governing board." Thun Vai moved to stand beside Zentra. "Knowledge doesn't belong to institutions, Director, especially knowledge that could transform medicine throughout the galaxy." "And what exactly is this transformative knowledge?" Opal demanded skeptically. Before Zentra could respond, a new voice entered the conversation, calm, authoritative, and unexpectedly familiar. "Perhaps I can answer that question." All eyes turned to see Dr. Zara entering the archaeological wing, accompanied by several distinguished-looking individuals of various species, all wearing the formal attire of the Galactic Science Council. "Dr. Zara," Opal acknowledged stiffly. "This is a secured area during a medical quarantine. Your presence is unauthorized." "On the contrary," Zara replied smoothly, her fluid form shifting to display the highest diplomatic credentials available in the Alliance. "As Chief Scientific Liaison to the Council, my authorization supersedes local quarantine protocols, especially when those protocols have been falsely implemented." She gestured to her companions. "May I present Councillor Theron of Earth, Councillor Vexmore of Krithia, and Councillor Drell of the Diluvian Collective. They have come in response to an energy signature detected from this facility, a signature that matches theoretical models of Anhao quantum resonance." Ambassador Krelvor's demeanor changed instantly, his scales smoothing in deference to the Krithian councillor. "Councillor Vexmore, I was not informed of your arrival." "Deliberately so, Ambassador," the elderly Krithian replied with evident disapproval. "Your aggressive approach to this situation was noted with concern by the High Council." Director Opal looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Councillors, I assure you the hospital has followed all proper—" "Spare us the administrative justifications," Councillor Theron interrupted, the elderly human's voice sharp despite his years. "We are here because what has happened in this hospital may represent the most significant archaeological and scientific discovery of the millennium." He turned to Zentra, studying her with keen interest. "You are the carrier, then? The vessel of Anhao knowledge?" "One of many," Zentra corrected him, "though perhaps the first to be fully activated in this cycle." "Cycle?" the Diluvian councillor inquired. Zentra nodded. "The Anhao designed their genetic legacy to activate in cycles, when galactic conditions were right, when their descendants, all of us, had reached a level of development where we could understand and properly use the knowledge without repeating their mistakes." And what mistakes were those? Counselor Vexmore asked. Isolation, superiority, the belief that advanced knowledge entitled them to dominate rather than cooperate. Zentra looked around at the diverse gathering before her. They came to understand, too late for their own civilization, that true advancement comes through collaboration across differences, the sharing of unique perspectives. She gestured to Thanvai and Fong. That is why the knowledge awakened here, in this hospital, where species from across the galaxy work together toward healing. The quantum resonance of cooperative purpose activated what had lain dormant. For the next several hours, the counselors questioned Zentra about the nature of the knowledge she had acquired. She spoke of medical techniques that could revolutionize treatment of currently incurable conditions, of sustainable energy systems that drew power from the quantum fabric of space itself, of biological principles that explained the interconnectedness of all life in the galaxy. Throughout the discussion, Thanvai observed with growing amazement. The shy nurse she had known had been transformed, not erased, but enhanced. Her natural compassion and intelligence now augmented by the wisdom of an ancient civilization. As the formal interview concluded, Counselor Theron addressed the group. It is the preliminary decision of the Galactic Science Council that this discovery be classified as a heritage of all sentient beings. No single government, institution, or species may claim exclusive rights to the knowledge being revealed. Director Opal began to protest, but was silenced by a stern look from the counselor. Furthermore, he continued, we recommend the establishment of a dedicated research institute here on Hevra III, where the connection to and how artifacts is strongest. This institute will be tasked with the responsible exploration and dissemination of this knowledge, under multinational and multi-species oversight. He turned to Thanvai and Fong. Dr. Lam, Dr. Fong, your actions, while technically in violation of hospital protocol, demonstrated the scientific curiosity and ethical judgment that will be essential in this endeavor. The Council would like to offer you both senior positions in the new institute, should you wish to accept. Before either could respond, the doors to the archaeological wing burst open. A team of journalists from various galactic news networks poured in, recording devices hovering in the air around them. Counselors, is it true that Anhao DNA has been discovered in modern species? Are the rumors of a genetic repository accurate? Will this discovery change our understanding of galactic history? The chaos of questions continued until Counselor Vexmore raised a hand, commanding silence with his authoritative presence. A formal statement will be issued through proper channels, he announced. Until then, respect the sensitive nature of this discovery and the privacy of those involved. Despite the counselor's admonition, the news spread rapidly throughout the Alliance. Within days, the revelation that many of the galaxy's sentient species potentially carried traces of Anhao DNA had created both wonder and concern across countless worlds. Religious leaders debated the theological implications. Scientists scrambled to re-examine genetic data. Politicians worried about the diplomatic repercussions, and ordinary citizens from 100 worlds contemplated what it meant to share a common genetic heritage with species previously considered entirely alien. 1 month after the initial discovery, Thanvai stood at the podium of the newly established Hevra Institute for Anhao Studies. Before her sat an audience of scientists, diplomats, and journalists from across the galaxy, all gathered for the first public symposium on the implications of the discovery. What we have learned in these past weeks has transformed our understanding of ourselves and our place in the cosmos, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. The revelation that many sentient species carry fragments of Anhao genetic material challenges our conception of natural evolution and raises profound questions about our shared history. She gestured to Zentra, who sat in the front row alongside Fong and Zara. Through the activation of these dormant genetic sequences, we have gained access to knowledge that had been preserved for 50,000 years. Knowledge that, if applied wisely, could help us address some of the most pressing challenges facing our civilization. Images appeared on the massive screen behind her, molecular structures of new medicines already being developed based on Anhao principles, prototypes of energy systems that produced no harmful waste, agricultural methods that could triple yields while regenerating soil. But perhaps the most valuable lesson from the Anhao, Thanvai continued, is not technological but philosophical. Their civilization reached incredible heights, yet ultimately collapsed because they failed to balance advancement with wisdom, power with responsibility, individual brilliance with collective well-being. She paused, looking out at the diverse faces before her, human, Crithian, Diluvian, and dozens of other species, all united by their curiosity and hope. We have been given a second chance to learn from their mistakes, to use this knowledge not for dominance, but for healing, not for separation, but for connection. This is the true legacy of the Anhao, not just the genetic material they left within us, but the understanding that our diversity is our greatest strength when united by common purpose. As the symposium continued over several days, Thanvai found moments to reflect on how dramatically her life had changed. From a hospital immunologist to a key figure in what might be the most significant scientific discovery in recorded history. It was a transformation almost as profound as Zentra's. On the final evening, she found herself in the Institute's botanical garden, a thoughtfully designed space that incorporated plant species from dozens of worlds. Zentra joined her there, her subtle luminescent patterns glowing softly in the twilight. "You seem contemplative, Dr. Lamb," the Crithian observed, settling beside her on a bench overlooking a pool of bioluminescent water lilies. "Just Thanvai, please," she replied with a smile. "We've been through too much together for formality." Zentra nodded. "Thanvai, then, what occupies your thoughts this evening?" "The future," she admitted. "Everything is changing so quickly. New discoveries every day, new applications of Anhao principles. It's exhilarating and terrifying at once. Change always is." Zentra agreed. The Anhao understood this. It's why they designed their legacy as they did, not as a complete blueprint to be followed, but as intuitive understanding to be integrated with the unique perspectives of each species. Thanvai turned to study her friend's face, still recognizably Zentra, yet somehow more. "Are you ever afraid of what you've become, of the responsibility you carry?" A thoughtful expression crossed Zentra's features. "Sometimes, but then I remember that I am not alone in this journey." She gestured toward the stars, visible through the garden's transparent dome. Across the galaxy, others are beginning to awaken to their own pieces of the legacy. Together, we will find the way forward. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a small figure, a child of about 5 years, with features that combined human and Crithian characteristics in a harmonious blend. Her skin held a faint lavender tint, and her eyes, while human in shape, possessed the vertical pupils of a Crithian. "Adriana," Zentra greeted the child warmly. "Have you finished your studies for today?" "Yes, Mother," the child replied, climbing onto the bench between them. She turned curious eyes toward Thanvai. "Dr. Vai, did you know that Anhao medical techniques can accelerate cell regeneration by 300%? I was reading about it in the Junior Science database." Thanvai smiled at the child's enthusiasm. Adriana was the first of a new generation, conceived through advanced genetic techniques that merged Zentra's DNA with genetic material donated by Thanvai herself. Not a clone or a hybrid in the traditional sense, but a true blending of both heritages, including the Anhao genetic sequences. "I did know that," she replied, smoothing a strand of the child's black hair, so similar to her own. "But I'm more impressed that you understand such complex concepts at your age." Adriana shrugged with the casual confidence of childhood. It's easy when you can see the patterns, like music, but with molecules instead of notes. Zentra exchanged a meaningful glance with Vanvai over the child's head. Adriana's accelerated comprehension of scientific principles had been both a joy and a concern for her mother's. She understood concepts that would challenge most adults, yet maintain the emotional and social development appropriate to her age. "Speaking of music," Zentra said, "isn't it time for your lesson with Maestro Drell?" Adriana hopped down from the bench. "Yes, we're studying harmonic resonance patterns today. He says they're mathematically similar to the quantum signatures in Anhao artifacts." She hugged both her mothers quickly. "See you at dinner." As the child dashed away, Thanvai chuckled. "Sometimes I forget she's only 5 years old." "A unique child for a unique time," Zentra observed. "The first of many who will grow up understanding both the legacy of the past and the potential of the future." She turned to face Thanvai fully. "Are you still concerned about your decision to participate in her creation?" Thanvai considered the question seriously. The decision to use her own genetic material in Adriana's conception had not been made lightly. As a scientist, she had worried about the ethical implications, the unpredictable outcomes, the responsibility of bringing a truly new kind of life into existence. "No," she answered finally. "Whatever challenges she may face, Adriana represents what I believe in most deeply, that our differences can become our greatest strengths when combined with understanding and purpose." She looked up at the stars, thinking of the countless worlds circling those distant points of light, each with its own unique life forms, cultures, challenges. And on many of those worlds, individuals like Zentra were beginning to discover their connection to an ancient legacy, a legacy that bound them together across the vast distances of space. "The Anhao made mistakes," Thanvai continued. "Their civilization fell, but in their final wisdom, they ensured that their knowledge wouldn't be lost, that it would return when we were ready to learn from both their triumphs and their failures." Zentra nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "And now that journey begins again, but differently this time. Not one species reaching for the stars alone, but many species reaching together." As twilight deepened into night, the garden's bioluminescent plants began to glow more intensely, casting patterns of light that seemed to echo the subtle markings on Zentra's skin. To Thanvai, they looked like constellations, maps of possibility, charting courses toward futures yet unimagined. What had begun as a simple fever, an anomaly in a routine medical examination, had opened a door to a new understanding of the galaxy's past and a new vision for its future. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be resistance, conflict, the temptation to use knowledge for power rather than progress. But as Thanvai watched her daughter return from her music lesson, face alight with the joy of discovery, she felt a profound sense of hope. The legacy that had been preserved for 50,000 years had found its way home, not to recreate what had been lost, but to help build something new and better. "It was just a fever," she murmured, almost to herself. "That's what you said when you first came to my examination room." Zentra smiled, the ancient wisdom in her eyes softened by affection. "Sometimes, Dr. Lamb, a fever is the beginning of healing.